Hello and welcome to my presentation today on leveraging CAD data to create technical documentation using SolidWorks Composer. I wanted to thank you all for taking some time out of your lunch today to join me on this presentation. My name is Sashi Sitambaram. I'm a technical solution specialist here with CAD Dimensions. So to start my presentation today, let's talk about a typical engineering organization. Generally, CAD data is used primarily in the engineering department, and a lot of times this data is only used in the engineering department and not shared in any other department. However, in this day and age, CAD data can be used in other departments, and there is a great opportunity to reuse existing CAD data in other departments as well. Essentially, by using tools like SolidWorks Composer, you should be able to access this CAD data and reuse it. In addition to that, in a world that is pushing globalization, a lot of times you might be working with companies in other countries, or even other departments within your same company in other locations around the world, and there could be a communication barrier. But by using tools such as, again, SolidWorks Composer, you'll be able to easily transfer data from one medium to another medium without much verbal communication. So the goal of this presentation is to show you how easy it is to use existing CAD data and transfer them to other sectors that may consist of non-CAD users and non-technical users. So to start this presentation, I wanted to show you a few examples of some customers that are already using SolidWorks Composer effectively. So one company is called POK. This company is located out in France, and if you take a look at their website here, a lot of the content on their website is built using SolidWorks Composer. So this is one of their catalogs to disassemble some of their parts. You can see all this content was created using SolidWorks Composer. So you can see it's very interactive and very easy to be able to read these types of manuals. Another example is a lot of you I know are familiar with maybe IKEA. So those types of manuals can be easily created in SolidWorks Composer. So another example that I have here is a couple of PDFs of one is this brush holder system. You can see that we're easily able to create pictures of transparency in the back and clear lines in the front to show certain primary parts, arrows, directions in which parts need to be assembled and disassembled. Very interactive content. So another example that we have here is an assembly instruction, a step-by-step assembly instruction of this Seabotics system. It's an underwater system. So again, very similar to a lot of the furniture assembly material that you may have seen before. Alright, so besides creating technical documentation such as assemblies, manual, and operator's guide or marketing material, you can also create assembly videos such as this one created by Beckman Coulter, which shows the assembly of this spring. So it shows exactly how to assemble the spring. This part needs to be put in, the spring needs to be compressed, and the next part is placed inside. So these are the types of videos that you can place in on an assembly line to show the technicians how to assemble. You can see here by Me Tech, all the parts with the part number shows up. It even shows you the exact tool to use and the torque, how much torque to apply onto that tool to be able to assemble these screws onto that bracket there. Very interactive. So for today's presentation, my goal is to show you how to take this data within SolidWorks, or within any CAD system for that matter, and transfer that into technical documentation such as this. Now this transfer here is where SolidWorks Composer is being used. So we'll start off by taking a look at this assembly in SolidWorks. So as you can see, what we have here is a full native assembly right within SolidWorks with all its parts and features right there. So you can see that this assembly was built right within SolidWorks, and if you take a look at some of the different configurations we have multiple configurations, and we'll take a look at how to choose and pick the different types of configurations that we may have within the assembly to bring into the composer, and how do we react to changing assemblies and creating multiple documentations for different configurations. Close this out. Let's go ahead and start up composer. So for this composer, if you take a look at the user interface, you can see that for one, it's very similar to SolidWorks. So for some of you who have already used SolidWorks in the past, who are familiar with SolidWorks user interface, you'll be able to jump right into the software and be able to navigate through all the different tabs and options fast and easily. So to start with Composer, let's take a look at how we will be creating this technical documentation today. So first off, we would have to create our views. So this would be created using SolidWorks Composer, and when we create these views, we will bring these views into our Microsoft Office document. So what I have already prepared beforehand is a Microsoft Office document which has some placeholder images. And what we are going to do is we're going to create this documentation and tie it and create a hyperlink to these documents, to these pictures right here, and you'll be able to see how by changing pictures within Composer, this document automatically gets updated. So let's go ahead and switch into SolidWorks Composer. Alright, so the assembly that we are dealing with today is called a bench grinder. So we are going to create a bench grinder operators guide. So I'm going to open up the bench grinder operators guide that I have here, and it's a .smg file, which is a native Composer file. Now you'll see that this document is actually empty right now, the reason why I have this is because I've tied this .smg file to my Word document. So the pictures that are being created is just tied to that. So that's the only reason why this was created beforehand. There's no reason for you to do this step. So now I need to bring in my SolidWorks assembly. So I'm just going to say open and find that assembly. That's the assembly right here. And as soon as you click on that assembly, you will see that the SolidWorks option shows up. And when you pick on the SolidWorks option, you can see all the different configurations that exist within that SolidWorks assembly. And as I mentioned before, you can pick and choose the different configurations that you want to open up and show within Composer itself. Now, besides SolidWorks native files, if you look under file types, we have actually many different types of files that you can bring in as well. So if you have any Pro E files, any inventor files, PDF, 3D PDF files, even any of the neutral file formats such as IGES or step files, ACES files. All these file formats can be brought in right into Composer. So if you have any existing data in Pro E or Inventor, you can bring it right into Composer. You don't have to transfer it within SolidWorks. So for this, I'm going to just say default, and I'm going to say merge into current document. And at this point, I'm going to say open. This will take a couple of seconds to transfer the data from SolidWorks into a Composer format. So as you see here, we have the SolidWorks assembly brought into Composer. And one good practice is as soon as your assembly comes into SolidWorks Composer, it will come in with the primary isometric view that is set in SolidWorks. And it's always a good idea to take to create a view of this position of the assembly position at this point. So to create a view, all you really need to do is go into this view tab and select on this create view. It's basically a camera, it's a snapshot, and as soon as I click that, it brings this main view. Now the reason for this is because during my image creation, I might have the part moved into a different location, but by creating this first view, I can always easily just drag this right back in here, and I'm back to square one. So now that I've created the first view, the second view that I need to create is to show how this grinder has to be disassembled in case it needs to be replaced. And to do that, I'm gonna have to first show this plate being removed, and you can see here that it's being held on by these 5 screws. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to rotate this assembly to be able to easily pick those 5 screws and the plate, and I'll simply drag this view one back in place, and you can see that it holds my selection. And at this point, I can use my translation tools to move that out of the way. Now that I've created my second view, I'll simply say create view, and I'm done. So the next view that I'm going to create is to show that this grinder is being disassembled, and to show all the nuts and the plates that are there in place to hold this grinder here. However, I really don't have any use for these parts anymore, so all I'm going to do is just simply box select all these parts, right click, and say hide. It's gone. So now I need to be able to select all these parts together. Now what's nice about SolidWorks Composer is that when you select one of the parts and you navigate into this assembly, you will see that all the parts are laid out just as if it was in SolidWorks. So it keeps the subassembly and assembly relationship that was already existed right within SolidWorks. So when you select on one part, it automatically highlights where the part is on this parts manager, and you'll be able to see the subassembly that it resides in. So I can just select that subassembly, and now I can move that entire subassembly together. So now that I've moved that entire subassembly together, this will be a great opportunity to use some of the other tools that I have to explode this group of parts together. So one tool that we have here is called the linear tool. So I'll turn off translate, select linear, box select this part, and you'll see as I drag this out, all the parts come off together. At this point, you may choose to um, relocate some of the parts. So I'm going to drag this part back inside a little bit, and now that I've shown the disassembly of this grinder, I can go back into my views and create view 3. Alright, so now that I've disassembled all this, let's take a look at a disassemble, an explosion of parts for something a little bit more complex. So at this point, I'm actually going to drag view 1 back in, and let's take a look at disassembling this plate right here, which consists of all these parts as well. Now again, just as before, when I select on one part and go into my subassembly, it shows me the subassembly that it resides in. So I'll select that, but now instead of having to invert selection or deselect these parts and select the other parts, I can simply just right click and pick this option right here, and it essentially hides everything that is not selected. So now that I have these parts, let's go ahead and start disassembling these components. So the first thing I'm going to do is disassemble this plate down here. So I'm just going to box select that, drag it out, box select that, drag that out, select the 2 bolts, drag that out, and that's it. Now the next step that we need to do is remove that plate which is behind this screen right here. Now one way that you can do this is you can scroll over this shield right here and hit the tab key, and that automatically hides that part temporarily and allows you to select components behind. However, an easier way to do this is to create something called an intermediate view. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the technique of creating a view, rotating the part as I wish to get access to selecting these parts, so I can even zoom in to be able to see exactly what I'm selecting, drag this view back in, which holds the selection as we've seen before, and then drag the parts out. Now another way to be able to move parts into place is to use a tool which allows you to copy existing location or other parts. So for here, I'm going to select this tool right here, and when I select this bolt, you'll see that bolt automatically is being placed in the right place. Same thing I'll do for this nut. And there we go, automatically placed. Now all we're really left with is this assembly right here. So I'll box select this, it translate. Now as opposed to having to move this in 2 axes, Composer actually allows you to move all this simultaneously using this circle in the middle, and just by dragging it, you'll be able to control 2 axes simultaneously. Now that I've dragged that out, I can pull my bolt and nut out and place it as I like. Alright, so now that I'm done with this view, as opposed to creating a new view, I'm simply going to select on view 4, right click, and I'm going to say update view. And you'll see that now view 4 is as how this looks. Alright, so let's go back to my PowerPoint for a second now that we're done creating the views. So now that we've seen how easy it is to reuse your existing CAD data to create the existing views, we need to add on more information onto these views, such as directions, maybe axis lines, maybe even create some nice renderings on these pictures to show good picture quality, because these technical documentations might end up with customers or with prospective customers, so it needs to look good. So let's take a look at doing that now with our existing views. So now that we have four views, let's take a look at this first view again. And one thing that we can do right within SolidWorks Composer is, if you take a look under the render, we have many different render options where we can add different types of mode. So you can say smooth with outline, shaded illustration, for technical use, flat technical, just flat itself. So many different existing renderings. You can even create a custom rendering if you choose. So you can say smooth, and you can create a lighting on your part. So maybe a heavy metal or metal. So in this case, maybe I'll pick a medium 2 lights that gives it or maybe 3 lights. This gives it a nice look. You can add some shadow or ambient inclusion. So in this case, I think I'll add the ambient occlusion and remove the shadow. You can even add a glow to the back, and if there's a ground, you can create a ground, a grid. You can create a shadow for it. You can create a mirror. So in this case, I'll turn off the shadow, leave the mirror, and leave the ground on. And you can even pick high quality to be able to create that in very, very high quality rendering. So again, no real need here for you to buy a rendering software. If you have SolidWorks Composer, everything is within this one software itself. So at this point, now that I've gotten the view that I prefer, that I like, I can just say update view, and at this point, all these effects will be held right within this view itself. So the next thing is, let's take a look at view 2. So in view 2, I'm not too concerned about how, what type of lighting or rendering mode it's showing. What I'm more concerned about is to show that these screws travel into these holes and then end up at the end of this plate to hold this plate in place. So typically you do that by creating axis lines. Now, to create axis lines in SolidWorks, it's as easy as selecting the path, selecting the parts that you want to create this path for, and just say create associative path from neutral. And there you go, it will create the line of where the part came from. Now you might choose to change these lines, so you can actually select on the line and choose all the different types of width, maybe. So if I want to make it thinner, if you want to change the opacity, perhaps if you want to change the color, or even the type of axis lines that you want to create, you can change that at any time. So in this case, rather than having to change each and every one, you can also select all the axis lines and change it together. And you can also create styles which you can save, so you can have consistency with all your technical documentation. So in this case, I've already created one which is called path axis lines, and when I select it, you can see all of them changes into that one consistent type of line. Alright, so now that I have these lines and I want to save this view, I'll just say update view, and I'm all set. So for the next step, let's take a look at view 3. So in this case, the first thing is I want to show that all these parts come together from within this hole. So obviously I can create that axis line that we just did, but maybe I want to add in more information. I want to actually add an arrow to actually show that it's all coming from that one direction. So to be able to create the arrow, just select on this arrow tool right here, and you can see that this arrow actually tries to snap to some of the geometry that you have, or you can even hold down the Alt key and it will automatically create it from the axis of a circular part. So So you can see that now I have it on that part right there. I can just click OK, and now I can just have it move right on that axis. So once I've created the arrow, I can make changes to it, such as I can drag it out, I can change the thickness, so I can make it a little bit thinner. And not only that, when you select on this arrow, there's more options here where you can create a gradient, so you can have it slowly change in gradient, and you can also uncheck stay on top, and this allows the arrow to move through your parts so you can clearly see that part. Now besides this arrow that shows it going in this direction, I also want to show an arrow that shows the rotation of this grinder right here. Now if you drop this arrow tool, there is an option which says circular arrow. When you select on circular arrow, it's a very easy tool to use because it automatically snaps to any circular geometry that you may have. So in this case, I'm just going to select this face, place it, and now I can make all the changes that I need. For one, I'm going to say uncheck the flat option so it looks more like this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And that looks much better. Alright, so now that I have my let's create a nice gradient for that as well. There we go. So now that I have my two arrows, again, just say update view. There you go. Alright, so now for view 4, let's take a look at creating some access lines for this, for all these options, right? So for one thing is you might want to maybe even hide or so in this case I will go ahead and hide this screen right here. Update the view. So just like before, I can box select all these screws, create associative path, and you can see that for these 3 screws it looks great, it goes right through the part. However, for this one, it just kind of created the shortest distance between that screw and the hole of where it came from. Now to be able to give it a better look, you can actually select on that, and you have more options here under construct mode, and I can say have it based on world axis, and now you can see that it actually moves in a better, more precise direction here. Alright, so again I'll say update view. There we go, we have created 4 views, and I've added the special effects that come with it. So what do we see with add special effects? We were able to enhance image quality and add more information to help anyone who would be the final audience when it comes to technical documentation. Alright, so now that we have this 4 views, how do we output this content? How do we create this content and send it over to a Microsoft Office document? So let's go back to Composer, and the first step to be able to create these 4 views in our technical documentation is actually to output this as a high resolution image. So when I select on high resolution image, it gives me all the different options for the number of pixels, the number of DPI, the JPEG settings, quality. So there's many different options here that you can pick and choose. If you go on to anti-aliasing, if you pick some options in here, that will allow the anti-aliasing as well. And there is a final option here which says multiple. Now under multiple, I'm able to select all views. So when I say views, it will create pictures for view 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can even create the naming convention for my views. and you will see here that I have everything is SolidWorks placeholder right now. So I'm going to close this document. Alright, so now that we are ready to create these views, let's go ahead and select the view 1, and we'll select on save as right here. So if you see under save as type, you can actually save this document as a bitmap or JPEG or TIFF or even a PNG file. Many different options here for you to pick. So depending on different software, so if you're using a bitmap, if you're using Illustrator, you might want to use bitmap or PNG. So in this case, I'm actually going to just pick JPEG because that works well with Microsoft Office. The file name is, I'm just going to keep the existing file name, and I'm going to say save, and sure, hit update. And now if you reopen that document, all the views have now transferred into this document automatically. Look at that. Very nice, very easy to use. So let's go back into my PowerPoint. So what do we see here with output content? We were able to create the views, add special effects, output the content, and you saw how it was so easy, almost seamless to create the views right within your Windows Microsoft Office document. So as long as you have these documents created, so just like SolidWorks templates, if you have a Microsoft Office templates already created, the connection is almost instantaneous. Alright, so now that we've output some content, how do we address design changes? So as I mentioned earlier, let's just say if you want to create a technical documentation for a different configuration, or if you're making changes in your part, this technical documentation should update at the same time. So this is what we are kind of addressing with parallel workflow, right? So as you're making changes to this part, that document should update as well. So again, let's just go ahead and close this out so we can see the change. And now I'm going to actually recreate all these views using a new configuration, and you'll see that I'll say file, say update current document with another file, and I'll just pick another configuration. Here it's called design change, and I'll say update. This is again, it's going to take a few more seconds to update all the information. So you can see here, this is a different configuration. It has this button right here to turn it on and off. It has a logo on the top called SolidWorks. So some changes in there. But what's nice about this is if you look at view 2, view 2 has also updated. You can see it's all there, and so has view 3 and view 4 as well. So now that we've created again this new we've updated this assembly, let's just say save as, and I'll say save again, say update, and now if you reopen that document, you'll see all the changes reflect it reflects all the changes that we just made. Alright, so as you can see, we are able to easily make design changes. So there's a parallel workflow between different departments. Now it's not, you don't have to wait for the engineering department to finish their assemblies or finish their part. You'll be able to start your assembly documentation or your marketing material while they're still working on their CAD files and cleaning it up or adding features to it. So as soon as they are done, you would be done as well, and this obviously saves time at the end of your design cycle. So as I had mentioned at the start of this presentation, SolidWorks Composer is not only used to create technical documentation and marketing material, it also has a lot of interactive content, such as creating animations and creating interactive videos for assembly instructions. So let's take a look at creating such an assembly instruction video. So what I'll do is I'll just close this out, reopen another file that I have here. So what we have here is a Power Painter, and I've created a animation here, and you can see when I hit enter, hit play, it creates this animation. You can see how easy it is to show the parts being disassembled, but I'm not finished with this assembly. I want to continue with this animation and show these parts being disassembled, and I want to show all these parts being reassembled. So let's go ahead and create and finish up this animation within this presentation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this timeline out right here to 14 seconds. Actually, I'm going to leave it first at 13 seconds. I'm going to create a new placement for this part to give it a nice view to show the disassemble of this piston and spring. And now I'm going to drag it to 14 seconds. Oh, actually I should have dragged it first. And now I'm going to actually select on this tool right here called Set Camera Key. Now what Set Camera Key does is it makes a note of its new location. Now what's great about this animation tool is as long as I have this option right here called Camera Play Mode on, I can just scroll right through this and I can see the animation as I build it. So there's no guesswork here. You can see that how it translates from here to here, and I just did this with selection of one tool. Now always have this auto key turned on, because what this auto key does is it automatically creates keys as you're moving parts within your assembly. So in this case, I'm actually going to select these two parts, control select, and I'm going to say set location key. And what this does is as I move this to a new timeline, and let's say I move this part just as if we are creating views as before, you see it automatically creates a key for me at that point, again because of that auto key. Now I'll do the same thing for the spring because I want both of this to disassemble at the same time. So again, you can scroll back and forth and see how that looks amazing. So the next thing I want to add on to this is an arrow which shows how the direction in which it needs to be disassembled. So again, just like before, you select on your arrow tool, and to be able to tag it to a circular face, just hold on the Alt key, and you can also zoom in. There won't be any problem to that. So I'll select that. Bring this out. I want to create some gradients for this, and also I want it to go through the part, so I'll uncheck that. You'll see that it has an arrow going through. And what's nice about creating an arrow within SolidWorks Composer animation is that it has a starting point and an end point. So you'll see here as you scroll through, this is where the arrow starts and this is where the arrow ends. So now at this point, what I want to show is these two parts disappear, and we are left with this final part, which is the part that we want to be able to disassemble from this assembly. So what I'll do here is I will set a camera location of all these parts, and the arrow as well. I'll set the key and I'll drag this out to some 15 seconds. And at this point, again, I'm just going to select all these parts, and I'm going to say drop the opacity down to 0, and you'll see that how the part is able to disappear between 14.5 seconds to 5 seconds. Now I'm going to move this part to give it a clear view, zoom in, and I'm going to say set the camera key. So what this does is, as I animate this, those two parts go out, it disappears, and we zoom into this final part. How cool is that? So again, let's take a look at this. Very nice. Alright, so now that I have my entire animation done for the disassembly, let's go ahead and create the same animation for the reassemble, to reassemble all the parts. Now you might think, wow, there's quite a bit of work here being done. How do I create the opposite? Well, it's actually very easy to do. All you need to do is select all these keys, hold down Control and drag this out, and at this point you can just simply right click this selected timeline and say invert, and you will see now that at this point it stops, and now it will just go backwards in an invert direction, and you'll be able to see that reassemble. So let's go ahead and take a look at this entire animation from the start. This is the reassembly of all the parts. Now imagine for a second being able to give this to a customer. They would definitely see quite a bit of value in this, and there's really taking on all the guesswork and having to figure out things by yourself. I think this kind of gives quite a bit of value to your customers. So besides interactive content such as animation, you can also create content which people can navigate through, and there's something called SolidWorks Composer Player, which is free and comes with every installation of SolidWorks. So even if your customer or your prospects don't have Composer, they'll be able to view some of the interactive content that you create right within Composer. So let's take a look at an example in Composer Player that I have here. So I open up a file that I have. So this is a .smg file that you may have created, anyone else created, and you send it over to one of your customers that only has the player. Now they'll be able to view this file, view all the different types of views that are available, and navigate through all the different options. So here you can see all the different colors, you can see some movements, you can see the technical BOM material that we have, the BOM that we have here, all the parts disassembled. And not only that, you can also give them an animation of disassembly of a part within the disassembly as well. Very interactive. All right, so let's go back to Composer for a second. So now that we have seen, we are able to create animation, we are able to create interactive content that we can send over to people who don't have Composer. What else can we do? What about bill of materials? What if you want to send over a bill of materials? You don't expect a customer to create um, to download Composer Play just to view a bill of materials. Well, they don't really have to. You can actually create content which can be seen right through Windows Explorer, Microsoft Explorer. So let's pull in this view right here that we have. So this is just a part, a sub-assembly, and I want to create a bill of materials for this. So to create a bill of materials, again, you can go into Workshop and select on bill of materials, and within this window, I'm just going to say generate BOM IDs, and you'll see it automatically created an ID for each of the parts here, and you can pick and choose whether you want it just for the visible parts, visible geometry. It's really up to you. And once I've created all my BOM IDs, I can say create, I can select all my parts, and I can say create callouts. You see it automatically creates all the callouts. So at this point, if you're familiar with SolidWorks drawings, you know that we have a magnetic tool, and they've also created the same tool right here. See that I can place this magnetic tool wherever I need to. As I please. All right. So now that I have all my my callouts, I can also create my bill of materials table, and it's as easy as showing it. You can see that it's all shown here. So the biggest question is having to share this with the customer or a prospect. Well, all you need to do is come into this drop down, say technical illustration, and this allows you to save this file out as a .svg file. Now, if you're not familiar with an SVG file, these are the type of documents that you can open up right within Microsoft Explorer, Internet Explorer, to be seen. So I'm going to just save it right here on my desktop. I'm going to open up my Internet Explorer. Actually, I'm opening it up from the file itself. So I'll right click the file and I'll say open with Internet Explorer, and you can see that right within Internet Explorer I can view the bill of materials, and it is interactive. As I hover through the different parts, it highlights it right in my bill of materials. So very easy to see, very easy to navigate. Alright, so what have we seen today for our interactive content? Not only you're able to create interactive content for Composer Player, you're able to create SVG files that can be seen in Internet Explorer. You can also take all these files and embed them into PowerPoint, as you've seen me do in earlier point of this presentation. You can create HTML publishing for your website, and also PDF publishing. So there's many additional benefits to Composer Play, just not creating technical documentations and animations. So what have we seen today? The summary is that we are easily able to reuse 3D CAD data. We can enhance image quality. So now you can remove the having to create or having to purchase any kind of 3D rendering software. you can easily control output and for creation, parallel workflow so things can be done faster, and last but not least, all the additional benefits that come with SolidWorks Composer and the benefits that you see from having transferred this data over to the end users. So that is the end of my presentation today. It's about 12:45 right now, so I'm going to open up the floor for any questions. You can just type it into your GoToMeeting. All right, so no questions today. If you think of a question later today or tomorrow, please feel free to email me at sashi@caddimensions.com. Feel free to give us a call as well if you want to talk about SolidWorks Composer. You can call us at 877-223-4255. Also, please visit our website, www.caddimensions.com. You'll be able to review this video on our website, or even check out some of the older webinars that we've had before. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great day, and bye.